Hello. So, it is time for UBL Season 9. We're jumping straight back into things, pretty much. We got done with the last season, we had a couple weeks, and now we're back. So, what does this mean? What's the rules? All that good stuff. So, we've actually got 12 coaches this time. I'm going to turn this down a little bit further. There we go. Just a little loud on my end. It should still be fine for you guys. But yeah, so we've got 12 coaches, 9 to 11 Pokemon, 110 points. The big thing is we are going to be following the rule set, the next rule set that comes out, which is, I don't know why, but it's called Regulation C. But it's series free. It allows the Swords of Ruin. So yeah, that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the Swords of Ruin. So that's gonna be fun. Not Swords of Ruin. I always call them the Swords of Ruin. The Treasures of Ruin. So Shenpao, Chi-Yu, Tinglu, and Wo-Chien. Alongside the Paradox Pokemon, no Hisui and stuff, no home stuff this time. We're just doing normal format. Which, the format, as of recording this, isn't legal, but by the time you start seeing matches it will be, because it's like the format starts at the start of April, and this has been recorded like a week before, so. Yeah. My draft, I didn't have too much of a plan going in. I had a couple of things I kind of was thinking about using, but oh boy was this draft rough for me. I got sniped so many times, and it was not good. A lot of Pokemon I wanted to use got taken, a lot of backups that I had were taken. I ended up having to go through about 4 different plans, and eventually I settled on something, and even when it was getting around to, the end of the draft, I was still getting sniped. I was just like, well, this is just great. This is probably the most I've ever been sniped in a single draft. So, despite this, I don't think I'm making any changes. I don't feel like the draft is that bad where I feel like I need to like rehaul the team or something. Because the Pokemon I've got actually are pretty good, and I think synergize at least decently well together, so we'll see what happens. So, let's talk about it. So I was actually second pick, which is incredible. Now, of course, I initially wanted Chi-Yu, and if you want to call this a snipe, then you can call this a snipe. But Chi-Yu went pick 1, so I'm like, well, that makes sense. I'll take whatever comes next. So, for my first pick, as second pick of the draft, there were a few options. Now, in the top tier, we're doing point system again. So, in the top tier, in 20 points, there were 4 Pokemon. There was Chi-Yu, which went. There was Fluttermane, which I definitely considered, but there was like one thing that I wanted to use, and it was a fairy type, so I'm like, probably not going to pick that. There was Roaring Moon, which was tempting just to initially get Tailwind off the bat, as well as a really good attacker. It's like, it's VGC, we're doing any terror. So, we could do that, or the one that I ended up going with, which is Iron Bundle. So, let's get rid of this. So, why Iron Bundle? Well, first of all, it's a combination of Hydro Pump plus Freeze Dry. Hits everything in the game. Pretty much. It's pretty hard to just deal with that specific time combination. Now, unfortunately, it does have to rely on a Hydro Pump, or Chilling Water, or Water Pulses, but for the most part, those are going to be the main attacking move. It also gets some decent supporting stuff, notably Icy Wind. The reason why I went with Iron Bundle is because outside of actually setting setting Tailwind, this is like the best speed control that exists. If needed, giving it a booster energy with a Quark Drive, and it becomes the fastest thing. And because it has the ability to lower speed with Icy Wind, it's really good speed control, along with doing really good damage, as well as being like annoyingly bulky at times. On the physical side, it's like annoyingly hard to kill from what I've found. So, but for the most part, it is pretty one-dimensional, but it does have a couple nice bits of utility that are really nice to have on such a fast Pokemon, notably Taunt and Encore, which are both really nice to have. Has pivoting as well with the flip turn. Doesn't get too much, unfortunately, but like alongside Terra, it at least has the coverage. It can hit pretty much anything. Like the combination of Hydro Pump Freeze Dry hits pretty much everything, so it doesn't need the coverage, and it's kind of just gonna have like the same 4 or 5 moves for the most part. But those 4 or 5 moves are going to be enough to win, like, most games. Just because Bundle is such a threat. It's already given me one of the fastest Pokemon in the format. Nicely 1 point higher than Xianpao and Fluttermane, which is already nice. And then, you know, I can run Quark Drive Booster Energy to make sure that I outspeed those. And make sure I can get my speed control off. So, yeah, so that's why we're going with the Bundle. Of course, being a second pick has its downsides, which meant by the time it got back to me, a lot had gone. But still not a lot that, like, I still didn't really have much of a plan, other than getting one Pokemon in particular, and that is what we're going to talk about next. I mentioned there was a certain fairy I wanted to use, and this was, like, the only thing I really wanted to use, this in combination with an old Pokemon we'll talk about a little bit later. And I don't know why, but I just really wanted to use Hatterene. It was pointed out while we were talking about the tier list, that there just isn't a lot of good TR setters. And Hatterene's a pretty good one. Pretty solid bull, great typing, Magic Bounce means it can't be taunted, can't be encored, and has pretty good damage output as well as supporting options as well. Notably, it gets Nuzzler this generation for some reason, so it doesn't even have to be used in Trick Room to really be good, but obviously it still prefers it. Alongside that, you know, you've got your Psychic coverage, you've got your Mystical Fire, Giga Drain, you know, all that good stuff that Hatterene has been known for in the past, other than, I guess, Expanding Force. No longer gets that. Why do you get Sword stats? How much attack do you have? You have 9. Hold on. No. Healing Wish, Helping Hand. Hatterene is a pretty reliable Trick Room setter, and while you may think, well, why not go for something like Armarouge? Armarouge was way more expensive, and I actually had my eye on a different fire type that we'll talk about pretty soon. So, Hatterene kind of goes on the opposite end of the spectrum to Iron Bundle, where, like, Iron Bundle's the super fast one, Hatterene's the super slow one. Gives us a really nice Trick Room user off the bat, and something that already benefits from its own Trick Room, which is really, really nice. I know, great typing, great things off the bat. Just, I felt like Hatterene was just something I wanted to use. Like, I've never used, well, I used it back in, what was it, the 6v6 draft, where we gave it Moonblast, and apparently that was all I needed for Indeedee Hat to just win the game, and win that season. But actually just using Hat here, I'm going to be pretty interested to see what it does. Often Hat will run a defensive Terra typing, and with that it becomes a lot easier to get up Trick Room, so... Because if you're not hitting Hat for super effective, you really don't do that much damage into it, so... yeah, so that's Hat, and following up, the main reason why I ended up not picking this Pokemon next was because I was going to go for my Fire type. And since Chi-Yu was picked first, that meant they got to pick 2 Pokemon, and then I got to pick going back into round 3, so I was like, well, they've already got a Fire type, so they're not picking this. And this was just something that I kind of thought about, where I was like looking at stuff and maybe things to pair with Bundle, and the amount of utility this Pokemon can have. And this one just really stuck out to me as something I was like, I'm surprised I haven't used this in, like, any form of draft. So we're going to pick it, and that is Volcarona. So, Volcarona is amazing offensively and supportively. There is no questions about it. It's extremely versatile in draft. Like, disgustingly versatile in draft. Off the bat, you have Tailwind. Great. You also have Rage Powder. Great. But also you can just Quiver Dance, because why not? On top of that, you also have Will-O-Wisp as well, which is, you know, more great supportive stuff. You've got Morning Sun, but also it's still Volcarona. You can just Quiver Dance and win the game. Just, like, give this thing a bit of support. I'll spoil it now, I don't get any other redirection, but, like, it's still really solid. Like, if you just give it, like, a turn to Quiver Dance, and it will win the game for you. Of course, like, Tailwind is great. The other thing as well is it doesn't just have Tailwind, it actually has String Shot and Struggle Bug, both of which are really nice moves to help speed and damage control. So, it's actually a really nice supportive option, despite its stats and what Volk's kind of known for in, you know, normal formats, but, like, the supporting options that Volk gets is really nice, and just the potential damage output and the scariness of Volk is really nice. This also pairs quite nicely with Bundle. Like, mid to higher speed Pokemon really like the Icy Wind support, and Volk is one that I think can take advantage of it greatly. And, like, a couple of the things that, notably, like, fast grass types, or something along those lines, that might try and threaten Bundle, certainly Volk can deal with. There's, like, the potential of rock types, but Bundle can kill those. Volk can kill them with Giga Drain. Fighting types for Bundle, we've already got covered with 2 different Pokemon, defensively and offensively, which is really nice. So, like, this core of 3 is really nice off the bat. And the other thing as well is, if you notice, they're all special attackers. This was intentional. I have noticed every single Gen 9 draft that, there are never any good special attackers left. So I wanted to get special attackers as soon as possible. Just get some special attackers off the bat that I knew I would be able to bring to pretty much any game and do well with. So, that is what we went for here. But then things started to go downhill. The pick before me, as it comes back into round 4, the only other Pokemon I knew I wanted got sniped. Hariyama. I wanted to go Hatterene plus Hariyama. That was the idea. And the only thing I really wanted to use this entire draft. And then Kanna took it from me. So, I get my revenge on Kanna later, don't worry. But, I don't remember what I ended up taking. But I took something. So, I was like, okay, well, that was my planned fake-out user. That was going to be my partner for helping set up Trick Room that wasn't redirection with Volcarona. So, I kind of need something else. And I had after some deliberation and having to rearrange plans and things like that, I managed to find some way of doing it. But first, we need to talk about what I grabbed in the meantime. Something that I did not think would go before this. I was like, I'm going to grab this first, because if there's anything else I'm going to want, it's probably going to be making sure I grab this now, because if this gets sniped, I'm buggered. I have no chance of recovering. And that is grabbing probably one of the best value picks I think there is in this draft. Another one got taken that I was hoping for, which was Dragalge. That came just before as well, like 3 picks before me that I wanted, but this was probably one of the best, and that is Houndstone. I never thought I'd pick Houndstone, and I don't want to talk too, well, I can talk a decent bit about Houndstone. Spoilers, we are getting sand. We'll talk about the sand when we get there, but we are getting sand. So, Houndstone was 7 points. Now, in my opinion, that's a steal. And you might be thinking, well, why? Like, out of the combos that there were, like, a lot of the combo mons kind of got up a price to make sure they, like, if you were gonna pick them, you were committed to them. For example, DD Armor, I think, was like 35 points. Dondozo Tatsugiri was like 30. Mouse Sword Annihilate was like 36, I think. Abomasnosa Titan was 24. This combo, this single Pokemon was 7 points, and the Pokemon paired with it is 17. So that's 24 points to get Houndstone, and also a good Pokemon that we'll talk about in a little bit. But why I think Houndstone is criminally underrated at 7 is because it's not just the Last Respects Pokemon. That's kind of why I thought it was overpriced a lot initially, because sure, it's known for Last Respects. Like, Last Respects, it's 50 power to start with, and then plus 50 for every party member that's died. You only need 1 for it to actually deal a lot of damage, to be honest. Off 100 base attack and stab, that's still pretty decent. Alongside that, you can Terra Ghost it, or you can do Terra Fairy, which I often see a lot. When I've seen people use Houndstone, it's to go with Play Rough. You've also got a Shadow Sneak, which is really nice. Stomping Tantrum is pretty decent coverage as well. You have options. But the main thing with Houndstone is it actually has a pretty decent supporting move pool. With things like Will-O-Wisp, Yawn, you've got your Helping Hand, classically, Ally Switch, Disable. You've got options to have, like, a Charm as well. I forgot about Charm. And Snarl, that was another big one. It's like, this is all options, and it's like, well, it's on a slow Pokemon. Outside of Sand, this can be a supportive piece if needs be, and can be led off with such. And you don't need a lot of speed investment to outspeed a lot of teams. Like, I don't know, let me look at, like, 18. Okay, so someone's fastest Pokemon is Salazzle, okay. So Salazzle, I forget what it is, let's have a look. So Salazzle's max speed is 185. So what's 185 divided by 2? It's 86. No, that's not right. 90? 93? Something along those lines? I think it's like 93. So that'll outspeed it with just 44 speed. Because 95 hits 190 speed. So, yeah, like 44 speed, and then you can run Bulk, and you can run, like, a supportive Houndstone. That seems pretty reasonable to me. Alongside that, you've got Fluffy with Body Press as well. So you can just invest into defense and just never die. You don't get buffs from Body Press, sadly, but 100 base defense and having essentially fighting ghost coverage is pretty reasonable. Of course, you've also got Ally Switch, because Ally Switch. But I think for 7 points, I feel like Houndstone is pretty reasonable. This was also another reason why I didn't want to go for Fluttermane, because I had a funny feeling. I had a feeling I kind of wanted to go for the Houndstone, so I was like, well, I may as well ignore Fluttermane. So, yeah, I think Houndstone, for being this low, I was like, if this is like one of the cheaper combos, and people are going to be ready for Tito Houndstone. I spoiled it. We do get Tyranitar, alright? We'll talk about Tyranitar when we get there. I spoiled it, I was trying not to spoil it, and there we go. But you probably could have guessed we're getting Tyranitar. But that's not till later. But, like, that duo is something that has to be prepped for, and there's a good chance I just don't even bring Houndstone. I think Houndstone's a pretty solid Pokemon, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so, now to get back to the Hariyama situation, in which I don't have anything that can really do exactly what Hariyama does. So I basically tried to grab the closest thing that was, like, kind of like Hariyama. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it still gives me a lot of the same things that Hariyama did. It meant that I lost certain backups essentially, but you know, here we are. And that is Medicham. So, Medicham was actually quite cheap, to be honest. Medicham was only 5 points, which was crazy. So, to give you an idea on point, Bundle was 20, Hatterene was 14, Volcarona was 16, and then we've got the 7-point Houndstone and the 5-point Medicham. So, the reason why this kind of took off some Pokemon off the table is because I actually planned on Breloom being a potential grass type, and I was like, okay, well, Breloom can kind of work fast and slow, whereas Hariyama is going to be working slow. Whereas Medicham's kind of too in between, where I didn't feel like I could use Breloom alongside it. So Breloom kind of had to go out the window as a result of Medicham. But I think Medicham's pretty solid. Again, this is a fake out using the fighting type that is okay. It's definitely not as good as Hariyama, but with pure power it can still deal a lot of damage. Maxing out an attack, that's 224 attack, which is high. Kind of is somewhere along the lines of like a base 145 attack Pokemon if you max out an attack. Alongside that, you've got High Jump Kick, where you've got Bullet Punch or Close Combat. I'm probably not going to be running High Jump Kick. As well as pretty decent coverage as well. Plus the ability to have some supporting options as well. Like, it's probably going to be kind of a fake out and mostly Daimon. But if it gets to deal some damage, that's pretty nice as well. It's not the bulkiest thing on the planet, but it has pretty decent coverage. And can also set Trick Room on its own, which is kind of cool. It's got Imprison Trick Room as well, which I think Hatterene gets. Do you get Imprison? I feel like you don't. Oh, you do. Never mind. But we can imprison Trick Room with that. But we can also imprison stuff with Medicham, which probably is like a bit stranger to imprison with. Just because it's also a fighting type. It means we double up on Psychics, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but here we are. It gets some decent utility where needed, things like Quick Guard. Probably got Wide Guard, but it doesn't, just Quick Guard. For the most part, it's not too bad. Like, it's not a great solution, but it's a solution, and with Fake Out users kind of rapidly dwindling, Medicham was one of the better ones that I thought could fit my team left. So, yeah. That's why we got a Medicham. So, I think after this, I also get sniped again. Let me see where. I know somewhere I get sniped. That was it. So, my grass type was actually supposed to be Appleton next, and that was going to be my next pick. Unfortunately, Rat sniped it off me. So, yeah, there goes another one. And the reason why that kind of matters is because that was one of my main Pokemon I planned to use alongside Hatterene and Trick Room. And I've also lost Hariyama, so I kind of needed something in Trick Room to be good. And have, like, a main Trick Room mode. Because, like, sure, I can redirect and I can Fake Out with Medicham, but, like, neither of those are great in Trick Room. Like, I can kind of use Medicham and it's probably fine. But, like, I'd rather not use Volk if I don't have to. So I at least need something that can also hit hard in Trick Room. That I can comfortably bring. So, while I was considering some other Steel types, this one kind of had to come to the forefront and become our physical offense of Trick Room, and that is Copperajah. So, Copperajah, we were actually talking about it, like, not long before I actually picked it. And that's because we didn't realize how much Copperajah lost this gen. It lost notably Heat Crash and Power with this generation, which is crazy. Like, why did they make it lose those? I have no idea. But it still does keep some very important moves. Life Orb Sheer Force Copperajah kind of hurts a lot, and you can invest in its defenses and it will do just fine, like, on bulk-wise. It's technically better to, like, invest in defenses, like, for general bulk on a low defense Pokemon like this with high HP. But Copperajah has 130 attack, and with Iron Head with Sheer Force Boost, with Play Rough with Sheer Force Boost, with Rock Slide with Sheer Force Boost, or if I don't want to run those sorts of moves, then I can just run, like, Earthquake/Stomping Tantrum, Stone Edge, Superpower, stuff like that. Oh, he does get High Force, right? It's like one of the few Pokemon that does, huh? This is an offensive Trick Room mon that has access to Snarl and maybe some other stuff, but for the most part, this is an offensive Trick Room Sweeper that's also a Steel type that can be kind of bulky. So, this was 10 points, and I was like, I was considering things like, the main one I was considering was Iron Treads, because I thought Iron Treads could be pretty good, and I didn't actually end up getting a Ground type, but I kind of had to make sure I had this slow boy, to make sure I had something alongside Hatterene and Trick Room, to make sure I had like a Trick Room mode that was to be feared. Because Hatterene and Copperajah and Trick Room are going to do a lot of different kinds of damage. And that's kind of what I was going for. So, after that, we didn't get sniped on this, which I was very scared about getting sniped, as this was the only flying type left at this point that I actually wanted. A lot of things were priced quite highly, a lot of things priced highly due to things like Tailwind, or just having some niche utility. This was thankfully not one of them. It doesn't have Tailwind, but it gives me a type that kind of helps my team without also giving me a 50 million extra weaknesses. So that's why I wanted it. I don't know how often it's going to come, but it gives me an option to have this sort of typing, and that's all I care about. And that is Rotom Fan. That's right, we're drafting another Rotom, baby! Literally the only flying type I actually wanted. It's not got good flying type moves. You know, we're relying on Air Slash as our flying type move. But Rotom Wash did, you know, pretty solid for me last season. And Rotom Heat did pretty solid for me in, you know, SPS. So, you know, we'll just take Rotom Fan, it'll be fine. We can Terror it into one of the other types, and just pretend it's one of those Rotoms, that it's a better one. In all honesty, Terror Electric Rotoms are pretty good, just because, like, then they have no weaknesses. It's not bad at all. You know, Rotom Fan can actually make use of its ability then. I've used Rotoms a million times. I don't feel like I need to talk about Rotoms for another time. Sorry, I was actually, like, a little dehydrated. But yeah, I feel like Rotom... I don't need to say much about Rotom Fan. I've used Rotoms a million times. This one is just one of the weaker ones, but it's still pretty decent. And when it has its time, it will have its time. So from here, I actually don't think I got sniped. Let me see. Did I get sniped on the way back? I don't think so. I think this was one of the few rounds I was really fearing getting sniped. Here, but we didn't. So, this is because the Pokemon I was fearing sniped didn't get sniped, and I knew the person who was first picked in the draft wasn't going to take it. I was like, alright, well, let's get this now, because if someone just decides they want this, I'm going to get annoyed, and that is the Tyranitar. So I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but we've got Tyranitar Houndstone. So, the reason why I actually wanted Tyranitar Houndstone is not because I think this duo is that good. It's because Tyranitar's a good Pokemon, and now I also just have Houndstone alongside it. So, I've got the threat of bringing Tyranitar Houndstone 2 weeks, while also having I have a Tyranitar who can Dragon Dance, and use Rock-type moves, and use amazing coverage, and do a lot of damage. This is kind of my top-end beefy physical attacker, and also one of my better Pokemon to actually use in Trick Room if needs be. For example, I'm pretty sure there's possibilities to do things with Weakness Policy. I'm like 90% sure. Like Draining Kiss or like Giga Drain or something with this. Like, there's probably something. I will go for Disarming Voice on my... or Magical Leap. I can't miss then. Oh. Fine, I've got backup music. Yeah. So it does more likely, honestly, is with Copperaja, because I can go for Bulldoze. Yeah. Yeah, so there's potential weakness policy stuff. It means I have Sand, I have a Weather to counter other people's, which I think the only of... No, someone drafted Sun and someone drafted Hail. So I don't think Rain was drafted, as far as I know. They might be picking it up in Grace. It might go in Grace, something like that. Not sure. Actually, there's 2 sets of Hail. So yeah, we've got our own form of Weather. We've got kind of a slower, bulky boy who is good in, like, 90% of situations. Even in Series 2, Tyranitar was seeing play, and that's in a format with, like, Paradox Pokemon, and Tyranitar is still seeing play, like, because it's good into things. It's, like, actually pretty decent into Floor Main. With the bulk that Tyranitar gets, it just takes hits for days, and you can run it in a multitude of different ways. You can run AV, you can run DD, you can run Scarf. Scarf's pretty reasonable on it. And because of the speed control that I actually have access to, like, Tyranitar works really well. It works alongside Volcarona really well. In fact, it works alongside Volcarona, like, extremely well. Notably due to finding out what has safety goggles. Because then, like, my only form of redirection is Rage Powder. Not something I'm a fan of, but when there's only actually 3 Follow Me Pokemon in the format, and 2 of them were, like, 16 and 17 points respectively in Mouse Holden and DD. And the other one was Pachirisu, who I used last season, but I didn't want to use again. That kind of left me with only Rage Powder, so finding out what actually has safety goggles with Tyranitar Sandstream is quite nice. So we have that option. We also have the option, you know, we can help chip things down. Tyranitar defensively is great as well. It's got options to use Terra Blast in multitude of different ways. Notably, Terra Flying is the most common one in actual VGC, but it could be, you know, could use other things, you know, here. So, yeah, really excited to use Tyranitar. Kind of gives me a top-end physical attacker that can be used in multiple situations, and also just gives me the ability to use Tyranitar Hackstone. Speaking of physical attackers, though, physical attackers was something, obviously, I was going to want at some point. Obviously, we've got Houndstone, we've got Medicham, we've got Copperaja, and, you know, we've got Tyranitar. So, and with Rotom Fan, we've kind of got, like, 4 and 4. For our top end, definitely leans towards special attackers. But we definitely have physical attacking modes. The main thing was a Dragon type, and, well, out of the Dragon types left, it was like, because I wanted Dragouge, that went. I wanted Appleton, that went. And so looking at the Dragon types left, I was like, okay, there's like one that I want, that I think I can make work. I don't know how good it's gonna be, but we'll see, because I just need a Dragon type. Like, I've got so many weaknesses that I just need a Dragon type. So my choice of Dragon was Haxorus. So Haxorus has a couple of really nice abilities, especially for VGC, notably Unnerve, which Tyranitar also gets, but you're not really going to use. Also Mold Breaker, so both of these abilities are pretty nice. The other thing with Haxorus is just, it hits like a truck. Like, Haxorus hits like a truck. This is kind of our fast physical mon of the team, that works really well in Tailwind or with Icy Wind. So, and we've also got Dragon Dance or Swords Dance to do just big damage. Also has First Impression, something I actually used a bit at the start of Generation 8 now. So, let's give you a try, just to see how high that attack stat is. How well Haxorus is going to do is kind of depending. Haxorus and Rotom were both kind of picked basically to help patch up weaknesses with the team, while also giving medium to high speed Pokemon that work in Tailwind. Rotom can probably work in Trick Room just fine, Haxorus less so. That's going to be mainly a Tailwind / combo with Bumble Pokemon. But with its great coverage, like, with close, you know, you got your close combat, Earthquake honestly won't even do that much to bundle due to its high physical defense, or just Stomping Tantrum. So, as well as just, like, yeah, so, like, close combat, Terror Blast as well, like, terroring out to the Dragon typing and giving it something else to help deal with certain Pokemon, is an option for sure. The utility that Haxorus gets, it's not really fast enough to use that utility. Like, 97's just kind of out of range. But we'll see what we can do. Haxorus, we'll see how much I want to end up bringing it. It depends. Like, I think Haxorus is going to be a Pokemon where, in some matchups, it's going to be pretty solid. I'm going to want to bring it. In other matchups, it's just going to be awful. Because it's not the bulkiest thing on the planet, like, it's pretty free. Especially on that special defense side, like, decent physical defense, but not great special defense. So, we'll see what we can do with Haxorus. Hopefully we can put in a bit of work with it, but, this kind of feels like when I picked Port Lucha last season, where I was like, I just need something to hit hard with, and Haxorus does a pretty good job at that, so. And finally, for my last pick, oh boy, I got sniped so many times on this, I was like, no one's going to pick the Pokemon I was thinking on picking here. So I was going to pick some Flora again, and that got taken. And I was like, okay, that sucks. But there's other grass types. And then Lurantis got taken, and I was like, ah. So I had to go with the only 2-point grass type that I could really get at this point, because I still wanted a grass type. And funnily enough, it's the most on-theme one. I just didn't want it because it gives me more fairy weeks. And that is Cacturne! Yay, Cacturne! So some Flora I wanted because it was the lowest speed, and then Lurantis, and then we got Cacturne. So, it's our third slowest Pokemon, so it can actually work in Trick Room. It can kind of work outside Trick Room as well. It has Water Absorb, which isn't that useful, but it can use Sand Veil, and, you know, be annoying that way. Yeah, this is mostly going to be a Pokemon that goes into Trick Room. It can do some stuff outside of Trick Room, notably due to Sucker Punch. But also it has the upside to Cacturne over the other two that I kind of previously mentioned is the fact that Cacturne can go physical or special. It can spam Dark Pulses and Energy Balls and Giga Drains and Leaf Storms, but also it can go on the physical side with things like Sucker Punch and Thunder Punch and Seed Bomb. Not get Woodhammer? Oh, you did. Guess not. Spiky Shield's cool, you got Drain Punch as well. It's got some decent stuff. I think it gets both Nasty Plot and Swords Dance, yeah. So, for a 2-point grass type, I was like, I'll take it. Right? Like, I just wanted a grass type at this point, and I was just like, please, I've suffered enough. I've suffered so much in this draft on how many times I've been sniped. So what, there was the Hariyama snipe, the Appleton snipe, the Gauji snipe, the Lurantis snipe, the Sunflora snipe. There was like something else. I think like maybe Chi-Yu I sort of counted as a snipe, but not really. Tinkertuff. I actually wanted Tinkertuff. That got sniped. What else? There was like something else. No, I think that was everything that got sniped from me. I think. So, yeah. We got sniped a lot, basically. So, saying this is what we ended up with, it's not too bad. You can see down here, the type chart's bad. The type chart's really bad, but it's just gonna have to do. It looks worse than it is, mostly due to Cacturne. We've got 4 Fairy Weeks and only 2 Resists. That's because I didn't get a Poison type. We've got 3 Fire Weeks and 2 Resists. Thanks, Cacturne. We've got a pretty big amount of Rock Weeks, in fairness. We've got 3 Rock Weeks. But then we have some things that can kind of patch up those pretty easily, and I wouldn't call Bundle exactly a rock weakly. It's technically weak to rocks, but yeah. And then like as for the ghosts, like I can hit the ghosts back pretty easily, and then I just have 2 psychic types as a result. But I've also got, you know, 2 dark type Cacturne, kind of helps there, right? So yeah, it actually looks like kind of a slow draft, just because we've got like the base 100 and then it jumps up to base 136, which is unfortunate. But like we've also got Tailwind, and Bundle is a form of speed control that just is kind of hard to deal with. Like run Covert Cloak to stop Fake Out, run Booster Energy to not be outsped by anything, and it just is speed control for the rest of the team. Not to mention Houndstone is way faster than it looks because of that Sand Rush, so that kind of jumps up there as well. We've got Tailwind on Volcarona, and actually a fast Tailwinder at that, so like one of the faster ones anyway, but it's also super versatile in what it can do. So I'd say Volk is probably one of the main supporting pieces of the team, but like a lot of Pokemon can kind of support and do damage at the same time. Things like Houndstone, if I want to go with more supporting Houndstone. I was going to say Delibird. Iron Bundle can kind of do that. Rotom can kind of support and deal damage. Hat can. A couple Pokemon can. But this one's going to be a pretty aggressive one for the most part, but, you know, I'm also using Houndstone, so, like, it makes sense. That it's going to be a bit more on the aggressive side of things, so. It's not great, it's definitely one of my favourite drafts I've ever done. Maybe somewhere in the season I'll end up trying to, you know, finagle my way into making this work a bit better. But we'll see. So, that is going to be it from me. Looking forward to the matches. We're going to be doing PRs as per usual. So, look forward to that, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.